Well, first of all, I never expected to become an activist at age 75, but here I am. I would like to talk to you about the way Pedie's parents were treated when the police came to their home. Almost 4 hours after Pedie was killed by Officer Wallace Jensen, while Pedie's body laid on the floor where he died and continued to lay there, we were told, until after 7 a.m. After being let in, the two police officers asked them questions for about 15 minutes, causing Rick to feel the need to say, "You are making me feel like I need to have a lawyer present." They asked, "What kind of relationship do you have with your son? Are you very close? How close? When was the last time you spoke with him? Does he use drugs? Does he live at home?" They did not want yes or no answers. They wanted details on each question that they asked. Finally, Rick asked, "Is my son dead?" Then they said, "I'm afraid I have to inform you he is deceased." And they continued to bombard him with more questions until Rick had to get belligerent with them to get them to leave. They were working to milk Pedie's family for all the information they could get. Then they twisted words to use them to make Pedie look like a problem child. That's how low the police go to work to glean information that they fed to the media so that they could demonize Pedie. And people hear and read what the police report, and the family is left with the mischaracterization of their dead loved one, not to mention the grief.
The police report was not finished, and it will not be finished until the statute of limitation runs out. So it's a deliberate thing to make it so we cannot press charges against the cop in criminal court and stuff, and that's what we want is justice on that end. You know, civil court is a different scenario, but this police officer being back on the streets of North Richmond like he is, it's you know, he could shoot someone else in an instant. He's a loose cannon, and I've had several cops that come up to me and tell me how if anyone was going to put a blemish on the city of Richmond's record, he was the one. And but they don't want to be identified because they don't want to be hung out to dry when they need police backup. It would have been nice if this officer would have called for police backup, and we wouldn't be here right now. They would have dealt with my son. My son was intoxicated, but still, it's not a death sentence to be intoxicated.
In the past 9 months, I've spent much time handing out flyers in front of Uncle Sam's, and I've had an opportunity to talk to many of the residents around there. And what I'm hearing the most is they don't trust the police, and they trust them even less now that this has happened to Pedie. Pedie has been a part of that community for many years. Our business has been in that city for 30 years. Our yard is right across the street from where Pedie was shot to death, within eye's view. He knew everybody around there. He loved all his friends in that area. He did many kind things for the seniors, the disabled. He always tried to help people around there as much as he could. He worked full-time for our small family business. We own property there. We pay extremely high property taxes. I'd like to know where all this money is going towards the tasers that are supposed to be being used. I'd like to know why his canine companion was sitting in the car enjoying the air conditioner while he was shooting my son on the street. My son was committing no crime other than public intoxication. He loved the store, the people around there. He even got haircuts from Blake at the barbershop directly across the street. He tried to contribute to the neighborhood around there. He knew everyone at the store so well. Our family knows him all so well. We're allowed to keep a tab running at that store. We don't even pay as we come and go. That's how well they know us there. Pedie felt like he was in a comfort zone around there. He was naive to believe that his life could ever be in jeopardy just because he had had too much to drink. He was unarmed and simply trying to walk back across the street from where he had came from. He'd been at a party behind our yard, going up to the front of the store. It's a residential area. There's many, many community residents around there. none of them are happy about what happened to Pedie. He was part of them. He made them part of his life. He was born, grew up, graduated in Pinole, but he chose to include Richmond as part of his life. And instead of the police knowing who he was or trying to figure out who he was, they felt as though he was a threat. And it was just as easy to shoot him dead on the street than it was to deal with him. I can't stand hearing things like the police trying to criminalize my son, demonize him. He wasn't a criminal. He had no record. He just worked every day and tried to make the people around there part of his life. They loved him, he loved them. And I still can't believe that this is the way they chose to handle their residents, the local community there. We have that little tip of the Iron Triangle, and we know everybody around there. Like I said, we've been there for 30 years. My son's been going to this store that he was killed at since he was a small child with my husband. They carry a lot more there besides alcohol. I felt safe that Pedie was on the street walking in an area with friends that knew him, that he knew. He wasn't in a vehicle. And how sad that this has to happen to a resident who is a good person doing good things for people in that area. I just have to ask myself, what kind of young adults does Richmond want as residents when they can do something like this to a boy like Pedie?
The Richmond Progressive Alliance is actually very proud of the progress that's been made in Richmond and the role of the police in community policing. We think that they've made tremendous strides in both reducing crime and improving the relationship between the police and the community. But that means that the hard questions have to be looked at carefully. And it has to be understood that even if you have a good police department, it's possible for there to be mistakes. And in this case, we think there must be more investigation. If we look at the basic facts of this case, it's that you have an unarmed person who is not engaging in any real criminal activity who ends up being shot dead by the police. That's a serious problem whether you have an awful police force or you have a good police force, and it deserves a good investigation. Not the kind of whitewash that was done by our district attorney here, who basically said that, well, there was no reason to even look at the evidence in this case and to look at what happened, when in fact it is now clear from all the evidence, both on videotape and from people who were eyewitnesses, that there is plenty of reason to look at this thing, either in terms of poor police procedures or possibly in terms of bad actions by an individual policeman. So we're not going to maintain good community relations with the police in Richmond unless this case is looked at seriously and the facts of the whole case are brought to the community rather than hidden from the community as they are now.
How do we know what we're saying is true? Could we be wrong? Well, in this case, we have plenty of evidence that there was a sham investigation, and here it is. All right, excuse me. Pedie Perez was killed September 14th, right? Now, when the Oscar Grant Committee got involved, we didn't know what had happened, but we had to find out. So the way that we chose to find out was to go directly to the neighborhood right next to the liquor store, and we knocked on all the doors in that vast housing project. Out of that interaction with the community, we wound up receiving a tape that showed exactly what happened, pretty much, and we had 4 witnesses. So when we read the DA's report, and also, by the way, Magnus's report, we couldn't believe it, that they would claim that Pedie had jumped on Officer Wallace Jensen, because, just to quote you, I want you to know, Wallace Jensen himself made this comment. He says, while Jensen tried to contact, this is from the coroner's inquest, that took place December, I think it was 10th, in, excuse me, so here it is. While Jensen tried to contact another officer on police radio, he said Pedie got up and walked away, even though the officer said he had told Perez he was not free to go. Quote, "Fuck this, I'm out of here," Jensen said he recalled Perez saying. Jensen grabbed Perez from behind and swept out his legs, knocking him to the ground, he said. Now that's what Jensen, the police officer, said. What did the DA say? Well, the DA says the following. We conclude that the officer acted in lawful self-defense. Based on our review, we believe the officer's actions constitute justifiable homicide. But in fact, in his document, he actually said the evidence indicates that Mr. Perez, who was very intoxicated at the time of the incident, instigated the attack on the officer. This is obviously false. So where did it come from? Well, we have to tell you, they just made it up. It's Huey. It never happened. And this was supposed to be the investigation that decides whether or not the officer is exonerated. Now think about this a minute. We deserve better. Now also, on the question of did Pedie grab the officer's gun, we asked every single witness, and every single witness stated, no, he did not even try. Pedie was drunk. When the cop jumped on him, he fell on the ground. His right arm was pinned to the concrete. He could not have grabbed the officer's gun if he wanted to. That's the sad truth of this situation. So what do we have here? We have a so-called investigation that indeed was a sham. That's what it was. A cover-up, a whitewash. It had nothing to do with reality. And this is what we have. That's why we're insisting that there be a genuine investigation. In fact, we call for an independent investigation, meaning independent from the DA's office. Okay. Also, to give you a sense of what the family has been going through, this family has done everything in their power to go through the normal channels of the system. As soon as they understood that there were various commissions available and stuff, we set up meetings to go to these commissions. So, on April 26th, we went to the Human Rights Commission. Unfortunately, this was undermined by the mayor, Mr. Butts, who advised his supporters on the Human Rights Commission not to come to the meeting so there would not be a quorum and the meeting would thereby be, canceled. Well, and how do we know this? Well, the actual commissioners that did not agree with that tactic told us to our face what had happened. Now, this is a shame, but this is what happened. So you go seeking justice and you're undermined by the mayor? This makes no sense. The next... all right, thank you very much. He accused us of trying to hijack the Human Rights Commission. Nothing could be further from the truth. We simply wanted to explain the issue as we knew it. The next day, we went to the police commission. Now get this, at this police commission, we very humbly asked, look, clearly there's been no investigation. This is not an investigation, right? So if this is not an investigation, how can we get one? The police commission told us very clearly we were late filing the documents because the family did not know about the police commission. When we found out about it, we filed the documents. It was past 45 days, so technically they did not have to take the complaint. But they said, okay, in spite of the fact you're late, we're going to take the complaint because it's a serious matter. You have demonstrated that there has not been a serious investigation, so we're going to put an investigator on this. This is what they told the family on the 27th, right, of April. Well, we received a letter, which we will share with you, with the press, from the city attorney telling us that no, they're not going to have this investigation because, he says, we have gone beyond the 45 days, one. Then he says also because the family has retained attorney John Burroughs for a civil suit, which has nothing to do with whether or not we need an investigation. A crime has taken place here. The crime needs to be investigated. But he raised that. And then And lastly, he said, well, we don't need a third one or something frivolous like that. The point being, this needs to be investigated. We are going to go to the Department of Justice and seek redress there. We're not going to give up. We've already taken steps in that direction. Now, so the two main things that have changed. One, we discovered that it was a sham, that they never intended to investigate, and everything shows it. They sent the man back to work before they finished the investigation. That literally, this is what happened. And then they come up with this sham investigation on January the 27th is when the exoneration letter comes in. But the coroner's inquest had taken place December 10th, where the officer himself made it clear that he initiated contact, or if you want to say attacked, Pedie.
Several weeks ago, the Oscar Grant Committee launched an investigation into the shooting of Pedie Perez to find out what the facts were behind it. And we found eyewitnesses step forward without too much attempt to investigate. Eyewitnesses stepped forward and told the story. These eyewitnesses were within 10 feet of the shooting itself. The two eyewitnesses that we talked to, the two that were closest to the scene, both said that Pedie Perez, one, did not attempt to in any time grab the policeman's gun, and two, that Pedie Perez was shot when he was putting his hands in the air and open palms out in an attempt to surrender. Both, the first witness, at this point, we're going to remain anonymous, but if you want more information, you can go to our website. The full transcript is on our website, Oscar Grant Committee website. The first witness said that Pedie had his hands in the air, and he said, "Don't shoot me," okay? The second witness, Mo Derrick, confirmed that when I asked him directly in the taped interview, which I have copies of over in my bag over there, that he doesn't speak English too good, but he demonstrated by showing that Pedie came up like this. When the cop was getting off the ground and Pedie was getting up, Pedie came up with his hands in the air like that when he was shot 3 times in the chest, okay? So, everybody knows what hands up means. It means I surrender. Even in war, if you put your hands up and you shoot somebody with their hands up, that's considered a war crime, okay? Open palms out shows that there can be no danger to the police. Hands in the air, so there's no way. The only legitimate way the police can shoot somebody is if they feel their life is in danger. Pedie is surrendering with his hands in the air, shows there's no way this police should feel in danger. So this is an unjustified killing, okay? So all this information is on our website, the complete transcript of the interview and the interview itself for those inquiring minds that want to know more. The so-called investigation did not interview these people. And the people they did interview, we interviewed too, and they came up with entirely different conclusions of what the police said. The police tried to take Steve Wesley's interview and say that corroborated them. That was his name, right?
That's correct.
And Steve Wesley said no, Pedie did not go for the officer's gun, when the police tried to use that as evidence that he did go.
Steve Clark.
Steve Clark, excuse me, Steve Clark. Okay, Steve Clark, okay? So this gets back to why we need a real investigation, and it also gets back to why we need to do like they do in Ohio, have a law that we can bypass these corrupt district attorneys that are in the back pocket of the police department they work with every day. We need to be able to bypass them with the evidence that we collect and go directly to a judge to get an indictment, like they do in Ohio, like they did recently in the Tamir Rice case, where the police shot a 12-year-old boy for playing with a toy gun within 2 seconds.
We have not been able to get, for instance, we don't have the police report. We asked for, if they interviewed these people, we'd like to see a copy of what they wrote down. We'd like to see this interview so we can examine it and try to begin to understand how they could come to the opposite conclusion, given the fact that they talked to the same exact witnesses. What we find, one of the barriers that ordinary people like us have to deal with in order to get information, is something called the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights. This has become an excuse for law enforcement officers to not be accountable to the public for what they do and to hide things like the police report, etc.
This law enforcement, this police officers' Bill of Rights has come up as an excuse of why we can't get this information for the investigation from the Richmond Police Department. This law, which has been passed in 17 states, has become a shield behind which trigger-happy cops can hide and not face the consequences of their actions. Okay? 17 states have passed this. Recently in Baltimore, everybody knows about the Freddie Gray case, with a young man who was beat to death or paralyzed, and the whole city establishment tried to find out, to investigate this. Even the mayor, Rawlings Blake, said that she kept running up against this policeman's Bill of Rights as an obstacle in the investigation. Okay, in San Francisco, the Albert Nieto case, where the Alex Nieto case, where the off-duty security guard had a taser and the other police killed him for having a taser. They couldn't find out the names of the cops who shot him for over a year, citing the policeman's Bill of Rights as an excuse. In Louisiana, they have on video, and you can get this on the internet, and we can get it on the Oscar Grant website, a woman being brutally beaten, bloodily beaten by the police inside the police station for being drunk and not sitting down when she was told to, and the cop getting off because some minor protocol in the policeman's Bill of Rights was not honored, and that exonerated the police from this brutal beating unconscious of this woman. So we can see over and over and over again, this police Bill of Rights is being used to hide behind. So this Bill of Rights allows the police to be only interviewed on job time. They get 7 days grace period before they can be questioned. They have the right to have the police union with them, and they have all kinds of protections the average citizen doesn't have when they're being investigated by the police. So it becomes a method for which to hide the identity and the past records of these the trigger-happy cops that are on the force getting away with this. So that's why the Oscar Grant Committee and committees across the country are demanding that we repeal this bad law, the Police Bill of Rights, which are blocking these investigations and stopping justice from coming about.
Any questions?
Yeah, I had one. Rick was mentioning something about that the police department is dragging its feet in order to, so there's something about the status of limitations expiring. Could he explain that again?
The statute of limitations for murder, as Pat pointed out to us, there is none. There is no statute of limitations for murder. So, I mean, that shows you the arrogance or the dementia, or both, of this DA. How can you tell me the investigation is only going to be over when the statute of limitations is up and we're dealing with a murder case?
Okay. And then you mentioned there was a tape that was found after you guys interviewed the neighbors. Is that the video that's now on YouTube, or is that something else?
Yes, there are two versions of the video on YouTube. One, where did the tape come from? The tape we were given the tape by the owners of Uncle Sam's Liquor. We didn't know they had this. They gave us a copy of the tape. The tape is from inside the store, from the two corners of the store. The outside camera wasn't working, but you can see what is, there are none so blind as he who won't see. But if you look at it carefully, you can see the Officer Jensen tussling with Pedie on the ground. You can see the witnesses looking at this, and you can see Officer Jensen getting up, taking there's a little snap button on your gun, taking that up, and then taking his gun out and killing Pedie. So, and hearing the shots 1, 2, 3, which gives the lie to the DA's story that Pedie, the policeman shot one shot, Pedie lunged at him, according to the DA, and then he shot twice more. That's not what happened. The shots came in immediate succession, 1, 2, 3. So you can see that on the tape. They gave us that tape. So we have the whole tape is available, and we'll make sure if you want to see that. But we also have an edited version of the tape with the voices of the witnesses overlaid on it, so that, people that have less time and just want to get the gist of it can do so. That tape is 3 minutes, 20 seconds.
Keep in mind that they confiscated those cameras and never gave them back to the store. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty sure they were betting that there were no other copies. They were hoping that there weren't. And they still haven't released those cameras yet.
Wow.
Also,
All equipment was taken.
All equipment was taken, and they have not released it. And then there's eyewitnesses in the community who are afraid to stand up because they're afraid of retaliation by the police.
In the video, when you watch the video very carefully, as the officer is unholstering his weapon, he has to take effort to do that. So Pedie was almost 3 times the legal limit intoxicated, and he was intoxicated with alcohol, and he was on prescription medication. This was not a person in any way that could have ever gotten that officer's gun. He was half the officer's weight and size. He was backing up. He had already told the officer he was going to go home. There were several junctures when he told this officer that he was not going to do him any harm, that he was going to be leaving, that he was not a threat to him at all. Yet this officer continued, not once, but twice, to pull him from behind and pull him down on the ground and sweep his feet out from underneath him and not use the tasers and the tools that he's been given that were non-lethal weapons. And the reason why I know what police officers should do is because I worked 9 years for LAPD. I was a management analyst for them, and I audited police behavior.
Hi, one of the things that we haven't really talked about today is the way that the police can use less than lethal force. And we know that the officer was did not have his stun gun on him, and he should have had that with him, and he didn't have it. What I don't know, and this is a question, was did he have his nightstick with him? Could he have? No, he didn't have his nightstick either. Okay.
Because he had his gun.
Right. All right. Well, that I think I'm making a point by asking the question, and the point is that you don't always have to use your gun. So I just hope the officers out there will remember that, you could grab for your gun, and it could be, the people who are shot. They are somebody's sister, brother, son, father, uncle, cousin. All the lives matter.
These are some of the thousands of people killed unarmed by police around the country, and not one of the police who have killed any of these people has been tried and convicted of murder. This is the kind of epidemic we're talking about. It comes mainly against black and Latino people, not exclusively, but mainly. And Pedie Perez is right down in the corner, one of the latest stolen lives. And we are determined with the family of Pedie and all the supporters here and the Oscar Grant Committee to see this through to the end and make this part of a powerful movement to end once and for all police murder against our children, against our families all over the country. We're determined to do that, not just to mitigate, not just to clean up the police department a little bit, but to end the murder and the wanton wholesale disrespect for lives and our families all over the country.
Because we believe Pedie's life mattered, we're going to march and rally in Richmond, meet at the BART station Saturday, June 27th at 11 a.m. Please, all of you, come and join us. Thank you very much.
And we call upon all organizations that have social justice on their agenda to join with us, to sponsor this, and to speak at this event. We want this to be the largest pro-Pedie demonstration ever. So we're asking everybody to get their community organizations and their other organizations, get the word out. We have flyers. Organize, organize, organize. We're not giving up. We're going to get justice for Pedie Perez and his family, and we're going to be marching on the 27th, Saturday in Richmond. Mark it on your calendar. Be there.
Justice for Pedie.
Okay, so
Not that, but the reason.